Be me 25. Living with my boyfriend, let's call him Jamir, for about 2 years. Our place is nice, not too big, not too small. He pays a little more of the rent because his job is better. I work at a boutique downtown. It's okay. Jamir is what you'd call a good guy. He's kind, he's patient, he remembers little things. He cooks dinner if I'm tired, he listens when I talk about my day. On paper, he's perfect, but I know better. I've seen it happen to my friends, I've read the articles, I've been on the forums. The truth is, there's no such thing as a good guy. There are just guys who haven't been caught yet. It's a hard pill to swallow, but it's the truth. My friends and I talk about it all the time. Male toxicity isn't a myth. It's in the way they talk, the way they look at other women, the way they hide their phones. It's a ticking clock. You just wait for the alarm to go off. So, I'm always watching, always vigilant. It's not that I don't love him, I do. That's why I have to protect myself. It started with small things. He'd get a text late at night, a buzz on the nightstand. He'd glance at it and put it face down. My heart would start pounding. Who texts at 11 p.m.? He'd say it was just a work notification, or his friend Roland. I'd ask to see it. The first few times, he'd just hand it over, confused but willing. Of course, it would be exactly what he said it was. A group chat with Roland making stupid jokes, a system alert from his job. I wouldn't find anything, but that just made me more suspicious. He's getting good at covering his tracks. A few months ago, we were at the grocery store. The cashier was a young girl, probably college-aged, a little too friendly. She was smiling at him, asking him about his day. I watched him smile back, polite but still. A smile. He thanked her and told her to have a good evening. As we walked to the car, my blood was boiling. I asked him why he felt the need to flirt with her. He looked genuinely shocked. His face went blank. Flirt? I was just being polite. That's the classic line. Just being polite. I told him I saw the way he looked at her, the way she was looking at him. He just sighed, a deep, tired sigh. He tried to explain that it's normal human interaction, that he's allowed to be pleasant to service workers. I told him he didn't understand. He's a man. He doesn't see the power dynamics. He was using his position to charm her. He didn't even argue after that. Just drove home in silence. The silence was the worst part. It felt like he was hiding his anger that I had caught on to his little game. That night, I waited until he was asleep. I took his phone from the nightstand. My hands were shaking. I knew his passcode. He gave it to me ages ago when he needed me to check directions while he was driving. I spent over an hour going through everything. Texts, calls, social media, photos, even his search history. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Every message was innocent. Work stuff, family, Roland. His search history was all about fixing a leaky faucet in our bathroom and looking up recipes for a dish I mentioned I wanted to try. I felt a wave of something. Not relief. It was frustration. He was just too good at deleting things. I put the phone back, my mind racing. He's smarter than I thought. The next morning, he made me coffee, just like always. He didn't mention the fight. He acted like everything was normal. This was a tactic, gaslighting, making me feel like I was the crazy one for being suspicious. I drank the coffee, but I didn't let my guard down. His friend Roland is a big part of the problem. Roland is single and very vocal about it. Whenever he comes over, I can hear them talking in the other room. I try to listen in. Roland is always telling him stories about his dates, about women. I'm sure he's a bad influence. Probably feeding Jamir ideas, telling him he can get away with things. One time, I confronted Jamir about it. I asked him what he and Roland really talk about. He said they talk about video games, work, sports, the usual stuff. I told him I don't believe him. I said, Roland sounds like the kind of guy who encourages his friends to cheat. Jamir got defensive for the first time in a while. He told me Roland is his best friend and a good person, and that I was being unfair. He said Roland actually thinks he's a lucky guy to have me, another manipulation tactic, trying to make me feel special while deflecting. I told him to tell Roland to stop coming over so much. Jamir refused. He said this is his apartment too, and his friends are welcome. We had a huge fight. He ended up sleeping on the couch. I cried in the bedroom, not because I was sad, but because I was so angry. Angry that he would choose his toxic friend over my feelings and my security. It was clear, Roland was his accomplice, his lookout. A few weeks later, he had a work dinner, a team-building event, he called it. I immediately felt a knot in my stomach. A dinner, with colleagues, female colleagues. He told me about it a week in advance, which was suspicious in itself. He was trying to make it seem normal, planned. I asked who was going. He listed a bunch of names, both men and women. I pretended to be okay with it. "Oh, that sounds fun. You should go." But my mind was already in overdrive. The day of the dinner, I was a wreck. I asked him what he was going to wear. He pulled out a nice shirt, one I bought for him. "Why are you dressing up so much?" I asked. His face fell. "You want me to look nice for my colleagues, don't you?" "I want you to be appropriate," I said. "You're not trying to impress anyone, are you?" He just put the shirt on without saying anything. He told me he'd be home around 10. He kissed me goodbye. I barely kissed back. I felt cold. As soon as he left, the interrogation plan began. I texted him at 8. "Having fun?" he replied a few minutes later. "It's okay. A bit boring. Food is good, though." A classic misdirection. Make it sound boring so I don't get suspicious. I texted him again at 9. "Who are you sitting next to?" This time, the reply took longer, almost 20 minutes. "Sorry, was talking. I'm next to Dave and Sarah from accounting." Sarah. Of course, I've heard him mention her. She's really smart. My hands started to sweat. 10 p.m. came and went. No Jameer. 10:15, 10:30. My mind was creating a movie. Him and Sarah, laughing, sharing a drink. Maybe he offered to drive her home. At 10:45, I called him. It went to voicemail. I called again. Voicemail. Panic set in. He was with her. He turned his phone off. This is it. I paced around the living room, rehearsing what I was going to say. The door opened at 11:10. He walked in, looking tired. "Sorry I'm late," he said. The manager gave a really long speech, and then traffic was a nightmare. I just stood there, my arms crossed. "Where were you?" He repeated his explanation, a little confused by my tone. "Why didn't you answer your phone?" He pulled it out of his pocket. "Oh man, it died. I didn't even notice." The screen was black, a dead phone. The oldest excuse in the book. I didn't buy it for a second. I told him I knew he was with Sarah. I demanded to know what he was doing for that extra hour and 10 minutes. He looked at me, and I saw a flicker of something I hadn't seen before. Not anger. It was hurt. He said, "You really think I would do that? After 2 years, you think that's who I am?" I told him I know what all men are. He just shook his head slowly. He walked past me into the bedroom and didn't say another word. I stayed on the couch, feeling a strange mix of vindication and emptiness. I knew I was right. I just needed the proof. My friend, the one I talked to about everything, she gets it. I told her about the work dinner incident the next day. She confirmed all my suspicions. She said her ex used to do the exact same thing. The dead phone, the boring work event. It was a textbook play. She told me I was smart to be vigilant, that I had to protect my heart. Hearing her say it made me feel strong. I wasn't being paranoid. I was being realistic. Jameer tried to talk to me the next morning. He said my lack of trust was starting to really affect him. He said it felt like he was constantly on trial for a crime he never committed. I told him the world is a tough place for women, that our lack of trust comes from a real place of betrayal. He needs to understand his male privilege. He doesn't have to live with this kind of fear. He tried to argue that trust is a two-way street. I cut him off. I told him he can earn my trust by being completely transparent. No more late nights, no more private conversations with Roland, no more friendly smiles to cashiers. He just stared at me. He didn't agree. He just said, "I can't live like that." The next few weeks were tense. He was walking on eggshells around me. He started coming home from work at the exact same time every day. He'd show me his phone without me even asking. "Look, no new messages." He stopped talking about his female colleagues altogether. Part of me felt victorious. I was training him, setting boundaries. But another part of me knew he was just getting better at hiding things. He was quieter, more reserved. The easy laughter we used to have was gone. He stopped suggesting we go out on dates. He spent more time playing video games with his headphones on, talking to Roland online. I knew they were talking about me. Roland was probably telling him to leave me, to find someone chill. That's what men call women who are too naive to see what's really going on. One Saturday, I was cleaning out a closet. I found an old shoebox filled with his stuff. Old photos, concert tickets, things from before he met me. I found a picture of him with another girl. They were at the beach smiling. His arm was around her. A hot wave of jealousy washed over me. Who was this? I took the photo into the living room where he was reading. I held it up. Explain this. He looked at the photo, then at me. There was no panic in his eyes, just weariness. That's my cousin, he said. We grew up together. That picture is from a family vacation like 6 years ago. His cousin. Right. I asked him why he kept a picture of another woman hidden in a box. It's not hidden, he said, his voice flat. It's a box of memories. She's family. I told him it was inappropriate, that it made me uncomfortable. I was his girlfriend now. He shouldn't be holding on to pictures of other women, family or not. I expected an argument, but he just took the photo from my hand. He looked at it for a moment, then he walked to the kitchen, tore it into 4 pieces, and dropped it in the trash. He didn't look at me when he walked back to the couch. I had won. I had made him choose. But watching him sit there, staring at his book without turning the page, I didn't feel like a winner. I felt powerful, but also very alone. This pattern continued. Every action he took was filtered through my lens of suspicion. He offered to do the laundry. I assumed he was trying to wash away evidence of perfume or makeup. He was nice to my mom on the phone. I thought he was just trying to build allies for when I finally caught him. He bought me flowers for no reason, a clear sign of a guilty conscience. Each time I'd confront him, and each time he would have a simple, logical explanation. And each time I would refuse to believe it. My friend said I was breaking him down, that eventually the truth would come out. She said men can only keep up the act for so long, so I kept pushing, kept testing. I felt like a detective on the verge of cracking a huge case, the case of my own relationship. He started spending more time at the gym after work. This was a massive red flag. Getting in shape? For who? Not for me. I loved him the way he was. He was obviously trying to impress someone new. I started checking his gym bag when he got home, sniffing his clothes for any hint of female perfume. I'd ask him detailed questions. What machines did he use? Who else was there? He would answer calmly, his voice devoid of any emotion. He was becoming a shell, a person who just went through the motions. One night, I told him I was feeling insecure. I thought maybe if I showed some vulnerability, he would confess. I told him stories about my ex who cheated on me. I explained that my fear comes from a real place. He listened patiently. When I was done, he just said, I know, and I'm sorry that happened to you, but I am not him. It wasn't the answer I wanted. I wanted him to say, you're right to be suspicious. I wanted him to admit that the temptation is always there, but he never did. He maintained his innocence. It was infuriating. His denial was so convincing. I started thinking of more extreme tests. I thought about asking my friend to try and message him on social media to see if he'd take the bait. I thought about accidentally leaving a voice recorder on in the apartment when I left. I was losing sleep. My life revolved around this one thing, proving that my worldview was correct, proving that he was just like all the others. Because if he wasn't, then what did that make me? If he was innocent, then all this pain, all this fighting, it was my fault. And that was a possibility I couldn't accept. So I kept digging, convinced I was just one shovelful away from the ugly truth. I had no idea how deep the hole I was digging really was, or that I was the only one who was going to end up at the bottom of it. His birthday was coming up. I decided to put on a good face, to pretend like things were fine. I planned a surprise party for him, invited Roland and a few of his other friends. I thought maybe if he saw how much I cared, how much effort I put in, he might crack. He might break down and tell me the truth out of guilt. The party was awkward. His friends were polite to me, but distant. I could feel them watching me. I could hear them whispering when I left the room. Roland barely spoke a word to me. He just gave me a tight, forced smile. Jameer seemed genuinely surprised and happy for a little while, but the happiness didn't reach his eyes. He looked tired, so incredibly tired. After his friends left, he thanked me for the party. He said it was really thoughtful. I used the moment to press him. I said, I do all this for you. I just hope you're being honest with me. He didn't answer. He just started cleaning up the empty beer bottles and paper plates. His silence was my answer. He was hiding something. I was closer than ever. I just needed one final piece of evidence, one undeniable mistake. And I was sure that sooner or later, he was going to make it. I had to be ready when he did. The apartment felt different after his birthday. The air was thick with things left unsaid. He was polite, but it was the politeness of a stranger, a roommate. He built a wall around himself, and I was on the outside of it. This was, of course, more proof. He was emotionally withdrawing, detaching himself from me to make it easier when he finally left for someone else. My friend agreed. She said it's a classic pre-cheating phase. Emotional distancing. It had a name that made it feel more real, more scientific. I had to intensify my efforts. He had a big project at work. He told me he'd have to stay late a few nights to get it done. I just nodded. Okay, just keep me updated. The first night he was supposed to be late, I felt my pulse quicken all day. This was the perfect opportunity for him. He texted me around 6 p.m. Hey, just starting on the final reports. We'll probably be here another 2 hours. I waited until 7:30. Then I called the main line for his office. My heart was pounding as I navigated the automated menu to get to his department. A woman answered. Not a receptionist, someone who worked there. I disguised my voice, made it a little higher. I asked if Jameer was available. There was a pause. I heard her call out his name. Hey, Jameer, phone for you. I heard his voice in the background. Who is it? She didn't say. Another pause. Then he was on the line. Hello? I hung up. My hands were shaking. He was there. He was actually at work. But for a split second, I had felt a thrill, the thrill of the chase, of almost catching him. The fact that he was there didn't make me feel relieved. It made me feel foolish, and I hated feeling foolish. He came home around 8:30, carrying a takeout bag. Brought you some noodles, he said, placing it on the counter. He looked exhausted. I didn't mention the phone call. Instead, I asked him who answered the phone in his department. He blinked. What? Oh, that was probably Laura. Why? Laura. Another name. I filed it away. No reason, just curious who else was stuck there late with you. Just a few of us on the project team, he said, taking off his shoes. I watched his every move. He wasn't acting guilty, which meant he was a very, very good liar. The next day he came home with a small gift bag. He handed it to me. I saw this and thought of you. Inside was a beautiful scarf in my favorite color. A few months ago, I would have been thrilled. Now, my first thought was a guilt gift. He must have done something, or he's planning to do something. I held the scarf. It was soft. Thank you, I said, my voice flat. What's the occasion? No occasion, he said. Just wanted to get you something nice. Things have been tense. I thought it might help. So it was a bribe, a peace offering to make me lower my guard. I looked at him. Where were you when you bought this? He sighed. I went out during my lunch break. There's a shop near my office. I nodded slowly. Alone? The light in his eyes just went out. Yes, Sienna. Alone. I didn't wear the scarf. I put it in my drawer, still in the bag. It was evidence. I wasn't sure of what yet, but it was part of the puzzle. A few nights later, he was working late again. This time, I didn't call. I had a better idea. I told him I was going out with my friend for a movie. Instead, I drove to his office building. I parked across the street in a spot where I could see the main entrance. I sat there in the dark, my car turned off, just watching. I felt like a private investigator. I was taking control of the situation. I saw people leaving the building in small groups. I scanned every face. Around 8:45, I saw him walk out. He was alone. He walked to his car, got in, and drove away, in my direction, towards home. I waited a few minutes, then I drove home too. I got back about 10 minutes after he did. He was in the kitchen, making a sandwich. Hey, how was the movie? He asked. It was good, I lied. How was work? Long. I'm glad that project is almost over. He was behaving perfectly. Too perfectly. My friend told me I was getting closer. She said that when you put this much pressure on a man, they either confess or they make a huge mistake. She said I was a strong woman for not just sitting back and waiting to be a victim. I was being proactive. I held on to that. It made me feel powerful. Even as our apartment grew quieter and colder, we were like two ghosts haunting the same space. We still slept in the same bed, but there was a huge, invisible canyon between us. Sometimes at night, I'd watch him sleep. I'd look at his face, so peaceful in the dim light from the window, and I'd wonder if he was dreaming of someone else. The thought was like a physical pain, a sharp jab in my chest. It had to be true. Otherwise, why would I be feeling this way? This wasn't just paranoia, it was instinct, female intuition, and my intuition was screaming at me. Then came the night it all fell apart. It was a few weeks later. Things had settled into a fragile, silent routine. The big project at his work was done. He was coming home on time every night. It was raining. One of those cold, miserable storms that makes you want to stay inside. He was supposed to be home at 6. At 6:15, he called me. My heart leaped. A call was unusual. It was always a text. "Hey," he said. "I'm going to be a little late." I could hear the rain and wind in the background. "Why? Where are you?" I demanded. "I'm on the side of the road just off the highway. Laura from my office, her car broke down. She has a flat tire, and she has her kid with her. I'm just going to change it for her real quick." Laura. The name echoed in my head. Laura. The one who answered the phone, the one he was working late with. It all clicked into place. This was it. This was the mistake I had been waiting for. It was so obvious, so cliché. The damsel in distress, the knight in shining armor, a car that conveniently breaks down on a dark, rainy night. My hands were gripping the phone so tightly my knuckles were white. "Okay," I said, my voice dangerously calm. "Don't be too long." I hung up. I didn't pace. I didn't scream. I just sat on the couch in the quiet apartment, and I waited. The anger I felt was cold and clean. It was the anger of being proven right. Every minute that ticked by was another nail in his coffin. He was with her, helping her, being the hero. I pictured them, him on his knees in the rain, looking up at her looking down, grateful, impressed. A spark. A moment. That's all it takes. He walked in the door a little after 7. He was soaked to the bone. His hair was plastered to his forehead. His jacket was dripping on the floor. He looked utterly miserable. "Man, it's really coming down out there," he said, shaking the water from his hands. "That was awful. Her spare was almost flat too. Took forever to—" He stopped talking when he saw the look on my face. I was still sitting on the couch, just staring at him. "What's wrong?" he asked. I finally stood up. "So, Laura," I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. He frowned, confused. "Yeah? What about her?" "How stupid do you think I am, Jamir?" His face changed. The exhaustion was replaced by a familiar wariness. "Sienna, what are you talking about? I told you what happened." I started to laugh. It was a high, sharp sound. "Oh, I'm sure you did. The poor, helpless woman with her child, broken down on the side of the road. It's like something out of a cheesy movie. Did you rehearse that line?" He just stared at me. "Her car had a flat tire," he said slowly, as if talking to a child. "It happens. On a rainy night, just a few miles from our apartment, with you, her brave coworker, conveniently driving by right at that moment, the odds are incredible." "I wasn't driving by," he said, his voice starting to get strained. "She called me from the office right after I left. She was leaving at the same time, and her tire went. She was panicking. She didn't know who else to call nearby. I was 5 minutes away. So it was even worse. She had his number. She called him directly. This was a planned, coordinated event." "So, you're her personal emergency contact now? What's next? Are you going to be her shoulder to cry on, her rock?" "She was scared, Sienna. Her little boy was in the back seat crying. What was I supposed to do? Just say, 'Sorry, my girlfriend is paranoid. You're on your own,' and drive away?" The word paranoid hit me like a slap. "So that's what I am to you? Paranoid? Or am I just smart? Am I just someone who refuses to be a fool? I see what's happening here. I've seen it from a mile away." "What?" "What do you see?" he asked, his voice rising in frustration. "Tell me, what is it that you think is happening?" "I see you laying the groundwork, the late nights at the office with her, the team building, now this. You're creating this bond with her, this dependency, so that when you finally make your move, she'll feel like she owes you something." He looked at me, and in that moment, something inside him just broke. I saw it happen. It was like a light switch being flipped off. All the anger, all the frustration, all the hurt in his face just vanished. It was replaced by a complete and total emptiness. He wasn't looking at me with anger anymore. He was looking at me like he'd never seen me before. He let out a short, quiet, humorless laugh. "You know what?" he said, his voice barely a whisper. "You're right. My heart stopped. A confession. I'm right? Yeah, he said, his eyes empty. You've been right all along. I'm a terrible person. I'm exactly who you think I am. He was being sarcastic, but the fight was gone. I'm done, he said. He turned and walked past me, dripping water on the floor. I stood there, stunned. Done with what? Done lying? He didn't answer. I followed him to the bedroom. He had pulled his old duffel bag out from under the bed. He opened the closet and started taking his shirts off the hangers, folding them neatly and placing them in the bag. The methodical, calm way he was doing it was terrifying. Reality started to sink in. What are you doing? I asked, my voice trembling. I'm doing what you've wanted me to do for months, he said, not looking at me. I'm proving you right. Stop it, Jamir. This isn't funny. He went to his dresser and started pulling out socks and underwear. I'm not trying to be funny. You're just going to leave because of this, because I'm finally calling you out? He finally stopped what he was doing and turned to look at me. His face was a blank mask. I'm not leaving because you called me out, he said, his voice completely level. There's nothing to call out. I'm leaving because I can't live in this prison anymore. I can't live with someone who looks at me every single day and sees a monster. He continued, I can't spend the rest of my life trying to prove a negative, trying to prove I didn't do something. It's impossible. Every good thing I do is a sign of guilt. Every mistake is a confirmation of your theories. There's no way for me to exist in this relationship without being the villain of your story. He zipped up the duffel bag. So, okay, he said, shrugging slightly. I'll be the villain. He walked to the nightstand and grabbed his keys and wallet. He looked around the room, then back at me. You win, Sienna. You finally broke the case. You were right all along. He walked out of the bedroom. I followed him, my mind unable to process what was happening. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. He was supposed to break down, cry, beg for forgiveness. He wasn't supposed to just leave. He walked to the front door and put his hand on the knob. He took the key to our apartment off his keychain and set it on the small table by the door. He didn't even look at me. Goodbye, he said to the door. And then he was gone. The door clicked shut behind him, and the sound echoed in the sudden deafening silence of the apartment. I stood there, in the middle of the living room, completely frozen. I had won. I had finally been proven right. He had run away. So why did I feel like I had just lost everything? The first few hours after he left were a blur. I just stood in the living room, listening to the rain hit the windows. The silence was louder than any of our fights. My first instinct was to call my friend. I needed her to tell me I did the right thing. I picked up my phone, my fingers hovering over her name. I told her what happened. He's gone. I confronted him about Laura, and he just packed a bag and left. There was a pause on her end. See, she said, her voice full of triumph. I told you, you cornered him, and he ran. Guilty people always run. Her words were like a balm on a raw wound. Guilty people run. He ran. Therefore, he was guilty. The logic was simple and comforting. I spent the rest of the night on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, feeling a strange sense of vindication. I had dodged a bullet. I had saved myself from years of future heartache. I was strong. I was smart. I didn't let him fool me. I slept on the couch. The bedroom felt too big, too empty. The next morning, I woke up feeling hungover, even though I hadn't had anything to drink. His side of the bed was perfectly made. His coffee mug wasn't by the sink. The small, everyday proofs of his existence were gone. It was unnerving. I went about my day, trying to feel normal, trying to feel liberated. I texted my friend again. Feeling so free today. It's like a weight has been lifted. She sent back a bunch of celebratory emojis. But I didn't feel free. I felt adrift. The next few days were the same. I kept expecting him to call, to text, to show up at the door, begging for another chance. I had my speech prepared. I would be calm, firm. I would tell him I deserve better. But the phone never rang. The silence from him was absolute. It started to eat at me. If he was so guilty, wouldn't he be trying to do damage control? Wouldn't he be trying to spin the story to win me back so he could continue his deception? His complete absence didn't fit the narrative. I logged into our shared phone bill account online. My heart was pounding. Now I would get the proof, the hard data. I looked at his call log for the past month. Calls to his mom, calls to his dad, Dozens of calls to Roland, calls to the pizza place down the street, and Laura. I scrolled down, looking for her name. I found the call from the night he left. It was 1 minute long, just long enough for her to tell him she was in trouble. I kept scrolling, back a week, back a month. There were no other calls between them, none. I checked his texts, It was the same, work-related group chats, jokes from Roland, reminders from his dentist. Nothing. It didn't make sense. He must have a second phone, a secret app. The need to find the proof became an obsession. It was the only thing that could justify the cavernous emptiness in the apartment, in my life. I started tearing the apartment apart. I was looking for something, anything, a note, a receipt, a business card. I went through the pockets of all the clothes he'd left behind in his closet. I found old movie ticket stubs from our first dates, a crumpled receipt for the flowers he'd bought me, a grocery list, nothing incriminating. My search got more frantic. I checked under the mattress, behind the dresser. Finally, I got to the closet in the spare room. On the top shelf, there was an old shoebox. It was where he kept some of his important papers and old keepsakes. I had been through it before when I found the picture of his cousin, but I had to look again. I must have missed something. I pulled the box down, dust puffing into the air. I sat on the floor and opened it. Old tax documents, his birth certificate, a couple of old passports, and underneath them all, a small dark blue velvet box. My breath caught in my throat. This was it. It had to be. A gift for her. He probably bought it and was waiting for the right time to give it to her. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely open it. I was preparing myself for what I would find. A ring? Earrings? I lifted the lid. Inside, nestled on a bed of white satin, was a silver necklace. It was delicate. A thin chain with a small, simple charm. I recognized it instantly. We had been walking past a jewelry store a few months ago. I had pointed it out in the window. I had said, "Oh, that's beautiful, so simple." I hadn't thought about it again. I never imagined he was even listening. My mind reeled. Why would he have this? Maybe he bought it for me as another guilt gift and then changed his mind. I lifted the necklace out of the box. Underneath it, there was a folded piece of paper, a receipt. I unfolded it. It was from the jewelry store. My eyes scanned for the date of purchase. It was from over a month ago. Before the work dinner, before the late nights, before the final fight. Tucked in with the receipt was another piece of paper. It was a printout. A reservation confirmation for a table for two at my favorite Italian restaurant. The one we went to on our first anniversary. The reservation was for next Friday. I didn't understand. I looked at the date again, and then I realized, next Friday, our 3-year anniversary. I had completely forgotten about it. In all my searching, all my investigating, all my obsession with his potential betrayal, I had forgotten the single most important date in our relationship. But he hadn't. He had remembered a random comment I made in passing. He had bought the necklace. He had booked the table, all while I was treating him like a criminal. I sat there on the floor of the spare room with the necklace in my hand and the reservation confirmation in my lap, and the carefully constructed reality I had built for myself shattered into a million pieces. There was no other woman. There was no affair. There was no grand conspiracy of male toxicity. There was just him, a good man, a patient, loving man, and there was me. I had been the toxic one. I had been the source of the mistrust and the pain. I had taken his love and his patience and twisted it into evidence of a crime he never committed. The feeling that washed over me was not guilt. It was horror. The horror of seeing yourself clearly for the first time and not recognizing the person staring back. I scrambled for my phone. I had to talk to him. I had to explain. I called his number. It rang and went to voicemail. I left a frantic, rambling message. "Jamir, it's me. I was wrong. I was so wrong. I found the necklace. I saw the reservation. Please, just call me back. We need to talk." I sent him a text. "I'm so sorry. I messed everything up. Please give me a chance to fix this." No reply. I sent another. "I love you. I was just so scared." The little delivered notification under the message was a cruel joke. Hours passed. Nothing. I called my friend, the one who had been my cheerleader through all of this. I told her everything, about the necklace, about the anniversary. I was crying so hard I could barely get the words out. I expected her to comfort me, to tell me we could fix it. But she was quiet. "Oh," she said finally. Her voice was small. "What do I do?" I sobbed. I don't know, Sienna," she said. "Maybe he just needs some space." Her certainty was gone. Her righteous anger had vanished. She couldn't help me. She was just as lost as I was. The next day I called Roland. I hated doing it. I had treated him so poorly. But I was desperate. He answered on the second ring. "What do you want, Sienna?" His voice was cold as ice. I started apologizing for everything, for how I had treated him, for what I had done to Jameer. He cut me off. "Save it," he said. "It's a little late for that. Please, Roland," I begged. "I need to talk to him. I need to tell him I'm sorry. Is he okay?" There was a long sigh on the other end of the line. "Is he okay?" he repeated, his voice full of disbelief. "No, Sienna, he's not okay. You spent 2 years systematically dismantling his self-worth. You turned his home into a courtroom where he was always the one on trial. You made him feel like his love and his loyalty were worthless. So, no, he's not okay, but he will be." His words were like daggers. "Just let me talk to him," I whispered. "He doesn't want to talk to you," Roland said, his voice softening just a fraction. "He blocked your number. He asked me to tell you, if you called, to just let him go. He needs to heal." He blocked my number. The finality of it hit me like a physical blow. "Goodbye, Sienna," Roland said, and he hung up. I sat there with the silent phone in my hand. It was really over. There would be no dramatic reunion, no tearful forgiveness. I had written a story in my head, a story about a cheating man and the strong woman who exposed him. But I had the characters all wrong. He wasn't the villain. I was. I look around this empty apartment now. It's filled with ghosts. The ghost of his laughter, the ghost of the life we were supposed to have. I still have the necklace. Sometimes I take it out and just hold it. It feels heavy. Not with the weight of the silver, but with the weight of my regret. My friend doesn't call as much anymore. I think my reality check made her question her own. It's easier to just believe all men are the problem. I learned the hard way that they're not. Sometimes the problem is the person staring back at you in the mirror. I had a good man, a man who was loyal and kind and who remembered. And I drove him away. Not with another woman, but with my own toxic beliefs. He never cheated, but I was the one who was unfaithful. I was unfaithful to the man he actually was, in favor of the monster I was so determined to see. And now, all I have is the silence, and the knowledge that I was right about one thing. I ended up alone. I just had the wrong person to blame.